Hey guys, it's Phil Schmidt here, back with another video. And today I'm going to talk about the my experience between the different ecosystems of Apple and Android. And I want to start by giving Apple the head start because I'm a little more biased on the Android side because I've used Android more than I have the Apple ecosystem. The Apple ecosystem I completely invested myself in, and I mean I had the HomePod, I had the AirPods, I had the iPhone, I had an iMac, I had a MacBook Pro, I had a Apple TV 4K. Um, I had all of that. The only things I didn't get were like, oh, I even had an iPad. Um, and I think I didn't get like the iCloud or anything like that. I just didn't invest in the storage space because I didn't really feel like it was necessary. I kind of wish I played with that just for the experience, but you kind of know where I'm coming from. With Android, I've really just used Chromecast, Chromecast Ultra, Chromebook, which is Chrome OS actually, with Android apps on it, and of course like Samsung and Google Pixel and Pixel 2 XL. So that's been my experience with Android. I did use a tablet way back in the day when Android was kind of still in its infancy, back in like 2009, 2010, somewhere way back then. I can't remember. Maybe it was sooner than that, but it was a tablet nonetheless that I hated because it just didn't work very well, and I kind of didn't want to do a tablet for a very long time. But that's another story. Anyways, we're here to talk about advantages between Apple ecosystem and Android ecosystem, in my Phil's honest opinion. So the advantages of Apple, and the one thing I really liked about iPhone was that it integrated with other Apple devices really well. You could use the drop mechanism or whatever it was, I can't remember, but you could basically drop a file from one machine or one iPhone to the iMac or the MacBook, and it would be very seamless. And I really liked that. And that's something I can never really do with it's AirDrop. I remember now, but I could never really do that with Android to a Windows or an Android to a Chromebook. You know, not that I really needed to, but it was just so super convenient. And I think that's one thing that I want to put on this is Apple is more convenient than Android is, at least in my opinion. And one of the things I want to put at the top is the AirPods. That is probably my favorite Apple product was the AirPods because you could put them in your ears and they felt pretty good. They were easy and they were convenient and they just worked. And it was just so seamless. Like I really love the AirPods. I miss them. Um, Wish there was a equivalent to the Android. So Google, if you're listening, get on it. I know there's the Pixel Buds, but I kind of doubt they're as good. I've never used them, but I'm just gonna try to refrain from putting an opinion on it because I've not experienced them. But I just have my doubts about them. I'll say that. Um, and I like Apple Music better than I do Google Play Music. There's actually two Don Henley songs, Boys of Summer and Dirty Laundry, and they're not up on Google Play Music, and that makes me mad. But that's it. And then with Apple Music, you can actually download on your iPhone individual songs instead of having to download an entire album of what you've added to your library, which is what I've had to do with my Google Pixel. And it's not that bad, but it's just kind of frustrating that I can't just select a certain song and just download it. I have to download the entire album that is in my library at least, so it's not so bad. I can actually just add one song from an album into my library and then look at my library and hit the download button, and it just downloads that song. And if I add other songs to that to my library that's on the album, it'll automatically download that. So there you go. It does download to the album of the songs that's added to your library, or wherever you download from an album or whatnot. Um, I really liked my second favorite product, which was the Apple TV 4K. And what I liked about it is that it supported all of the video streams, or most, if not all, but all of the ones that I knew that I used, which was Netflix, Crunchyroll, VRV, Amazon Prime, HBO Go, Funimation Now. They were all supported. So, and it included a remote, which was really, really nice. And then another thing I liked about iPhone, though, was the iMessage feature, which you could use a loud or a slam or a confetti effect or all these special effects that you just don't get on Android. So it's really kind of a bummer that Android doesn't have messaging features like that. And one thing I liked about Siri, at least for me, is it may not be as smart in ways that Google Assistant is, but it is smart in one way, and that was I could actually ask Siri to play a song that was unique, and it was some World of Warcraft song that I used to play that game, and I downloaded it from YouTube, and I put it on my phone, and I would say, "Hey Siri, play Ashenvale music from World of Warcraft," and it would do it. But Google Play Music, whenever I asked the Google Assistant to play a song like that, it would never play it. It would always come up with something else. And I was like, oh, so it seems like Siri seems to recognize what's in your library a little bit better than Google Play or Google Assistant does. And overall, another product I really liked was the Apple, their MacBooks. And yes, I know they're overpriced, and I've heard stories and I've seen videos of parts being used that were defective or whatnot, and they're expensive, I will give it that, but they're pretty sturdy, and in my experience, the MacBooks are some of the best laptops you can buy. I mean, the experience is great. I really liked the butterfly keyboard, and I really like the Force Touch trackpad. Now, here are the disadvantages, things I didn't like about Apple's ecosystem. It's expensive, and when you get one, it only really works on other Apple devices. I can't just use Android messaging through, I can use Android messaging through other different avenues. I can do it on Chrome browser on a Samsung or a tablet or on a MacBook or just any Chrome browser will support Android messages, so I can type on the computer. An iMessage only really works. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, is that it only works on Apple devices. Another disadvantage, at least for me, was that Google Play Movies is not supported, whereas on Windows, you can always put in iTunes, and you can use and watch your videos there. But on Apple TV or any Mac, you can't do Google Play Movies, and you can't download them. So if you're already heavily invested, like I am, into the different movies on Google Play Movies, you just can't access them or download them or anything. And one thing I didn't like about this disadvantage of Apple was YouTube does not support 4K on Apple TV, and hopefully they'll fix this later, but it's because of a codec that Google switched to, and Apple just doesn't support it. So if you do it in Safari or on Apple TV in general, you will not get 4K YouTube. You have to use a Chrome web browser or a Chromecast, which is what I actually use now. Another disadvantage is Apple is pretty locked in. You can't use a custom launcher. It's always the same on every phone, so it's pretty boring in a lot of ways. And you can't have a dynamic wallpaper like I like, which is, Paperland Pro, which shows you kind of what it changes depending on the time of the day, what the weather's like, and the time of the year. So, and then the last thing I want to talk about is iCloud. Is that for any significant storage, it costs money, and it only gives you like 4 or 5 gigabytes, if I remember right, which isn't so great. So now I'm going to make a switch here to Android, and I'm going to talk about what I like about Android and the experience there. Android seems to integrate with Google Software Wear, which is basically Android and Chrome OS and Chrome browser, which you can get Chrome browser on any computer as far as I know. You know, even Linux has a version of Chromium, which is the Chrome browser. And Google Play Music, in my opinion, has superior radios. It's easier for me to get a nice radio and just go at it. Like it just seems like there's more options for more radio styles and more radio options in Google Play Music than there is in Android Music. And Chromecast Ultra supports 4K YouTube, which is, I watch a lot of YouTube and I like to watch in 4K. I got a 4K TV. I want to be able to use that. That's the only way you can do it, is through Chromecast 4K on a TV. And you know, I was talking about Android messages on any Chrome browser, whether it's Windows or a Mac or a Chromebook or a Linux machine. If you have a Chrome browser, you can implement Android messages and you can type on your computer or whatever it is and sync that to your phone. Now, I will say I have had instances where it was not always pleasant. And what I mean by that is it would say it's not connected. And usually I'd have to jiggle my phone and open it up and unlock it and it would connect. But it would just not work. It would just not work sometimes. But most of the time it works. You know, I'd say it's a little less reliable than iMessage is for the iMacs. For iMacs and the iPhones. You know, if you've got an iPhone and you have a MacBook, you're set. I mean, you can use iMessage, you go in there and you can type, and I've never had a problem with it not being able to sync to my phone. And it's cheaper than Apple overall. Like, you have more customization on what you want to do, and it's cheaper than Apple. And we're talking like, I mean, could be several hundred, especially up to 1,000. Seeing as how once you get an Apple, everything needs to work with Apple, and you have to end up buying a lot of more Apple stuff in order to use it. Yeah, and I'll talk about some of the disadvantages of Android. So, like I said earlier, with Google Play Music, you have to download an entire album. You can't just download individual songs, but there's a workaround where you just add it to the library and you just go to your library and you just download that album from there and it'll download that song to your phone. And Apple Music just has the ability to do those individual songs. And one thing I don't like about Chromecast, which is, it's great, and I actually really like using my phone as a remote, even though I did really like the remote with Apple TV because it was just so seamless. But the touchpad was a little quirky. It was always either too sensitive or not sensitive enough whenever I was trying to move it around. But Chromecast doesn't support Android Amazon Prime streaming, and I'm like, I've always wondered why this was, and I don't know. I think Amazon is just trying to get you to buy their Fire Stick, but I don't understand why they put their Amazon Prime app on the Apple TV. Oh well. These are things that I don't understand. So right now I'm kind of invested in the Android ecosystem a lot. You know, I've got a Google Pixel 2 XL and I love it. And I have a Google Chromecast Ultra, which is great. And I have a Chromebook. I'm actually thinking about getting a MacBook Air 2018 for Christmas just because I miss that laptop experience. It's just to me, it's second to none. But that's probably um, the only Apple product that I will have or keep. I'm about to get a Samsung tablet, which is for Android, and I mainly am using it to watch movies on the go. So that's a little bit about the differences that I see between Apple and Android. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Did you like this video? Did you like this talk? Rate, comment, subscribe. Love to hear from you guys. Anyways, this has been Phil Schmidt, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!